So good afternoon and welcome to the latest of our referral partner interviews. I'm utterly delighted this afternoon to introduce you to the fascinatingly interesting lady that is Carole Johnston. So Carole, welcome to the call this afternoon.
Thank you, Becca. Thank you very much indeed. Just to say that, yes, I'm Carole Johnston in my business, but a lot of people will know me as Carole Hallam, which is my married name. My husband used to say that the businesses that I do are my hobbies that cost him money. So I decided, right, that's it. You're not included in this anymore.
So if people are searching for, we'll come to this later on,
Yeah.
If people are searching for you on social media, it could be Carole Johnston, it could be Carole Hallam. I like that you've got a stunt name as well. It works. You're in the right place. So Carole, we met on a networking call a few months ago and I was absolutely fascinated when you were talking about your business, Sockingly Healthy. And we're going to come on to talk about that in a minute, because I've talked about this to so many people since we met. And sometimes they look at me going, what are you talking about? So the case, it was definitely a case that we needed to get you on and say this yourself in your own words. Let's find out a little bit about Carole. I was going to say Carole Johnston, Carole Hallam, whichever hat you want to wear. Let's find out a little bit about Carole as a person. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Carole.
Right, very old, a widow, a mother of 3 daughters, one of whom died 4 years ago. Living in near Bristol. Lots of things going on in life, as it is for everybody. But I came across. Going back a bit, we retired from our health studio in 2015, my husband and I. We'd been working 6 days a week for 10 years and had got really not fed up with it, but it got to the point where another thing, he said, this business is costing us money, it's time we retired. So we had a health studio in Bristol with power plate machines and massage therapists and hairdresser and beauty therapist and all of these things. Anyway, we made the decision very quickly to call it a day. And do you know what? I was so bored. I cannot tell you. What is the point of getting up if there's nothing to go to?
Retirement didn't suit you, Carole. Is this what you're gently saying here?
Yes. So I decided that I would become a life coach. My daughter in America was training to be a life coach as well. So we used to talk back and forth and all the rest of it. And then suddenly she died unexpectedly, and I couldn't do it anymore. It was all too painful. So a couple of years later, somebody came along to me and said, have you seen these socks? I said, oh, for goodness sake, what do you mean socks? I don't want to be selling socks. Ridiculous. He said, no, you really need to try them. So I bought a pair and he said, you've got to wear them 24/7. Oh, I hate wearing socks in bed. Yeah, you need to wear them. So I wore one sock and one of my socks 24/7. So I was washing them out overnight and backwards and forwards. Anyway, found out a bit more about it, discovered that actually they had helped me in ways that I hadn't really realized there was a problem. And so the journey started, as they say.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And I love this about you, Carole, because every time we talk about your products, you absolutely put front and center the skeptical response that lots of people have. And I love the fact that your own personal experience, how you entered this industry, how you found yourself where you are now, is by someone coming up to you and you going, what? Do I have time to talk to you about socks? And it's something you've never shied away from, because when people live with some of the struggles that we will go on to talk about, their patience potentially with helpful suggestions can be a little dwindled, can't it? And there are so many stories that you shared with me already where you kind of almost sort of make a suggestion and then people duck because of the response that comes out. And I love that you were very much the same. So have you always had a background in sort of health and an interest in sport and movement and all of those kind of things? Because am I right in thinking that you're an avid lady on the court?
Oh, I don't play anymore. In fact, I didn't I didn't play tennis except at school. I became a squash coach. A squash coach for 15 years. Trained the Avon junior. Avon is no longer a county, but the Bristol area county juniors for 15 years. But I got into tennis by originally being a ball girl at a big tournament in Bristol, then deciding that when the tournament came back after a while away at our local club, I didn't want to be using the public loos. They were so horrible. So I offered my services as a courtesy car driver, so I could go to the clubhouse and use their loos.
You are a smart cookie.
And that took me on I hate the words we use all the time, journey, but it really was. I worked at international tennis tournaments in Moscow and Beijing and Tashkent, Uzbekistan, all over the country, Bournemouth, Brighton, London, in a tent, in the Albert Hall. And I still work for the WTA now in the big tournament in Birmingham every year.
That's right. You've done that when we first met.
That's right.
Up
yes.
there that week, working ridiculously long days and traveling lots and lots of miles.
Yes, absolutely. I worked with the men's tour for about 25 years, and I've done about the same with the ladies now. So it's been going on a fair old while. Is that right? 50 years? Oh gosh, no, we won't even go there.
We'll gloss over that bit. So number, you have experience.
Yes.
Experience.
Yes, absolutely.
So being fit and active is an important part of your life and has always been.
Absolutely, absolutely. My career was in health clubs. Nothing exciting like a personal trainer or anything like that, but just selling memberships to people all around the country. Being always able to use their gyms and being able to work out and do all that sort of thing. Yes, always been important part of my life. In fact,
this sense of bringing professionals together as well, and being in a centre where people can access whatever support and help they need. And I think that's why, certainly talking to you about the referral partnership, I could see this kind of, I get that idea kind of thing as we had an initial conversation. So how did it go from you? And this is a story we hear a lot, isn't it? Someone's had an incredible experience with something, and that product experience becomes a passion, and suddenly it's become an opportunity for you. So how did you go from, have you tried these socks, and like almost knocking someone out with your response, to the birth of Sockingly Healthy?
I was really, really disappointed actually. For the first 3 weeks, I wore them and I didn't notice any difference at all. Even though I was being told that it didn't matter that you weren't feeling any different, your brain was affected immediately. You put the socks on within 7 seconds.
Wow.
Your brain goes into what they call homeostasis or balance. And then the body can get on and deal with all the other things that are happening. And then the first time I played badminton with a friend of mine, I had insoles in the shoes in my trainers by then, as well as the socks. And she said, "Gosh, you're playing well today." And I mean, running is not an option these days, I have to say, but I did feel I was moving better, that I was hitting the shuttlecock better, that I had more energy. Something must be happening. Goodness me, it's not something that I had acknowledged. And then about a few days later, I was walking up and down some stairs, and I thought, do you know what? That pain in my hip when I got downstairs isn't there anymore. That's really weird. And the pain that I get occasionally in my neck, that's not there anymore. So I just
not thinking that this was the socks or the insoles at this point. You were like, well, it's something different.
I had decided that at that point it must be the socks and the insoles. Amazing. But it had taken 3 weeks and somebody else's observation before it actually registered with me. So then I started finding out a bit more about the technology and about the fact that it had been developed by a Canadian gentleman whose mother had developed MS when he was in his teens. And this was back in the 80s. There was nothing known about MS in those days. And he decided eventually, he became very wealthy through computer encryption. He had a company that he sold for a huge amount of money. And having dragged his mother around the world, complaining that she didn't want to go on another aeroplane, thank you very much, to see this man who might have a cure, he decided that he would look at it himself. And he came up with this pattern, which is on the socks.
Gosh.
And that is what, when it touches your skin, within 7 seconds, your brain is affected. Just extraordinary. I mean, how it works, I have no idea, but I don't know how my phone works.
Good point.
I don't know how
do we use in life that we have absolutely no idea.
Yes. All I know is that there are so many stories of people whose lives have been completely transformed. And we can't cure, prevent, diagnose, or treat anything. We can't make any medical claims. We do know that people with plantar fasciitis and fibromyalgia do get huge benefits. Oh, and diabetic neuropathy. Those are the three that we can. Actually, I'm not sure about fibromyalgia, but the other two, plantar fasciitis and diabetic neuropathy, they have done studies on these, and they are doing studies on a whole range of other things.
Yeah, and this is the thing, isn't it, with product intervention, you know, in this arena, and it's exactly the same with the products that I work with. You know, the products I work with are food-based supplements, or, you know, it's CBD oil. And it, you know, it's all anecdotal evidence. We can't make medical claims about any of it, but you can't kind of question the anecdotal stories that we can share, because I mean, some of the stories that you've told me, Carole, are just probably blown my mind. And again, as I say, the caveat being each of them has been like, what? So what? You know, have you got any idea how much time in my life I'm thinking about my pain? Have you got any idea the impact, the time that I've lost in my life living with this or suffering from this? And you want to talk to me about socks, or you want to talk about things? What? You know, so talk us through then so there are lots of different ways that you can access this like wearable neurotechnology is the way you refer to it, isn't it? So that you've just shown us the sole of a sock, which was great.
Yes.
So
insoles, thin and thick, to go in trainers or ordinary shoes, exactly the same pattern on them, and patches that you can wear on your arm. You start wearing them on the inside of your dominant arm, between the elbow and the wrist. Once you put it there, you can put it anywhere on your body. So if you don't want to be showing it because you're in a short sleeved shirt or blouse or whatever, you can stick it on your hip, or, you know, wherever you like. I usually put mine up here somewhere if I'm wearing them. Yeah, I mean, the stories that I just have to tell you this story, because this is the one that really is just extraordinary. There's a guy that I have become very friendly with, actually, him and his wife and his 6 children.
Wow.
He, in his 20s, he developed stroke-like symptoms down his left side. Wow. So weak left arm, weak left leg, drooping mouth, chronic fatigue. He also had fibromyalgia. He couldn't do anything. He would get up in the morning and take the kids to school, because his wife was a full-time teacher and she was leaving at silly o'clock and coming home, you know, late in the evening. And then he would come back home and he'd go back to bed and have a sleep. And then he'd potter around with his walking stick. He couldn't walk without a stick around the house. If he went out, he had to have an electric wheelchair. Then he would have a nap after lunch, and then he'd go and collect the kids, and that was him pretty much wiped out for the rest of the day. And this went on for 20-something years. And over those years, as you say, everybody kept saying, have you tried this? Have you tried that? You know, this snake oil and these magnets and all the rest of it. And then somebody said, have you tried these socks? And like me, he said, don't be so stupid. And he avoided this person for 3 weeks until he couldn't find any more excuses. And he sat down and he put on the socks. And he walks down the corridor without his cane and hasn't used his wheelchair since. This is 2-3 years ago. And he lives, you know, in Amesbury. So it's not like he's sort of on the other side of the world and we can't verify it or anything like that.
Yeah, he's a real life human living in this country, yeah.
Absolutely. And he did a brilliant video, actually. He stopped wearing the tech overnight and did a video of himself in the hall, walking up and down, and he's really struggling. And then he goes upstairs and you think, my God, he's going to fall. This is too awful. And he manages to get down again, which is even more scary. Sits down, puts on his socks, and he's fine. Just walks. I mean, it sends shivers down my spine every time I talk about it. So that's that side of it. Then there's another video of a Canadian lady who's damaged her vocal cords. She had a bad coughing fit when she had bronchitis or something, I don't know. And she talks like this, and you can hardly understand what you're saying. And she's at a trade show. She's just taken off her socks, her shoes, and she's standing on the ins, and then she stands on the insoles and she says, and this is how I am when I'm on the tech.
No way.
And she gets off and she's, and I'm like this normally. I mean, weird. Two completely different symptoms. How does that happen? Just by putting on a pair of socks or standing on some insoles.
And so the pattern that's on these socks and the insoles is the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
And similar on the patches.
Yes.
And it basically almost kind of just alters what's happening in your brain. So your brain, rather than sort of being in that freak out pain, I mustn't move that limb that way, or I've got to move it this way to compensate. It's kind of, I guess, quietens all that chatter and all those
absolutely
in the brain.
Yes. It's a little bit like a Control-Alt-Delete for the brain.
I love that. Like a reset.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And in fact, actually, another little story, I don't know whether I told you, there's a guy in Northern Ireland whose daughter was very badly affected by one of these vaccines, not COVID, but one of the other ones. And she had ended up having multiple seizures. She couldn't bend her legs properly and just was in a really bad way. Anyway, he tried the socks and they have been helping. They have, now she's back at school again, which she wasn't before. But he was in touch with a doctor in the States. And well, actually, he's a chiropractor, but chiropractors in America, I think, are different to chiropractors in this country. Mm-hmm. And he, oh, sorry, this is going to be a long and rambling story.
No, I like this one.
This guy, Dr. Mark, as we call him, was in a very bad car accident many years ago and was paralyzed, but got himself back to being able to walk over many years with diet and exercise and strong will and all of these sort of things. And somebody came to him and said, have you tried these socks? And he again said, don't be so stupid. But he eventually was persuaded to do a brain map on himself. Now, they do a lot of brain mapping in America, and he does it with his patients all the time. So he stuck this cap on his head, mm-hmm. and there's a video of him doing this. And he puts his bare feet on the insoles, and you can see the brain waves working.
Wow. And
how it changes his brain. So he was immediately right on it and went straight to Canada to see Jay Dhaliwal, who's the inventor, and has become a huge advocate and works with the company now. But he also has his own chiropractic practice. Anyway, he does brain mapping for anybody who will pay for it to be done. So David in Northern Ireland sent him, asked him if he could buy a machine for something like $20,000, I think it is. And so he's been mapping his daughter's progress, and they can see the difference and how her brain is improving. Anyway, we were given the opportunity to have a brain mapping done. So
you were?
Yes.
Oh,
so
wow.
Went up to Oxford. David did a week's tour of the mainland, and I went up to Oxford. Oh, it's the funniest thing. Have you seen that? They stick this cap on you, mm-hmm. and then they inject into all these places lots of gel, and you've got tubes sort of, well, I mean, the most elegant thing you've ever seen in your life. It's really ridiculous. Waiting.
Profile picture.
waiting with bated breath now to see the difference, because we haven't had the results back yet.
Oh, how exciting.
That was quite, yes, that was quite interesting. Anyway, where was I? I can't remember.
It's as you say, that we use so many bits of technology around our life and we don't question how they work if they do what we are kind of wanting them to do. But isn't it interesting that when we look at something like this, we're almost like, well, yeah, but what does it do? How exactly does it work?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we know that there, you know, we have pressure points, we have meridian points, we have all sorts of things around the body. And, you know, they absolutely have an effect on the way the energy moves around our body, the way our particles move around our body, the way our brain is working, all sorts of things. And let's face it, it's that, you know, the brain is the master computer of it all, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But
yes. It's a bit like, you know, with reflexology, different parts of the foot equate to different organs. Well, it's a bit like that, only it affects the brain.
It is absolutely incredible. I've had a conversation with you as well about some of the other bits and pieces. So there are, you've mentioned the patches and you've mentioned the socks and insoles in particular.
Yes, that's called Human Performance Technology, HPT.
Okay, so tell me about, there are some quite specific patches, aren't there, that that are available for very specific things. So tell us a little bit more about those.
Right, well, the next one is the REM patch, which helps with rapid eye movement sleep. So it gives you deeper sleep. Some people report that they have very vivid dreams, but it does give you deeper sleep and therefore better sleep.
And sleep has a knock-on effect on so many things in terms of our overall well-being, doesn't it? It's a conversation I have with so many clients that, you know, I'm not sleeping and therefore X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and D, E, and F are going on as well.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. Now I don't know as much about that because I've been concentrating on the human performance technology. But that's my next venture. I've ordered some patches for myself to try. But again, anecdotally, people have said, you know, oh, I haven't slept so well for ages. But other people have said, actually, I've tried them for a week and they've been awful. I haven't slept well at all. And that actually often happens with the other patches as well, or the other technology. It sometimes you can feel worse before you start to get better. So sometimes people say the pains come back and it's awful. And it's like wearing varifocal glasses. Right. You put them on to start with and you, that's really weird. So you take them off and then you put them back on again for a little while. And then you take them off when you feel weird again, and then you put them back on so that your brain gets used to them. And it's the same with all the patches.
Yeah, and I'm guessing if you've been used to living in chronic pain, or if you've been used to living with one of these chronic conditions, then your brain has almost had to rewire itself around that anyway.
Exactly.
So trying to bring it back into line and back into balance, it kind of makes sense that it has that initial kickback of, no, wait, I'm used to doing it this way now. So, you know, when we try and bring it back into balance, which is ultimately what it should be, it's got so used to being squishy for such a long time, it's kind of fighting that, and you know,
absolutely.
It's like when you have a brand new pair of running trainers, all of a sudden your knees hurt and your hips hurt because you're realigning where actually you should be running, because you've been running in trainers that have been shot for the last 3 months.
Yes, exactly.
So it's that patience often, isn't it? And how often we hear of a product where people stop using it because they don't necessarily think it's doing anything, and then suddenly realize it was, because now actually I'm not right. So going back, persevering, being patient with our body as well is such an important lesson, isn't it? When we use these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are the REM patches, and there's another couple of patches you were talking about.
There's the Meta Patch, which boosts the resting metabolic rate. Now, again, that's not one that I've done much work with, but yeah, I mean, again, people don't necessarily see huge reductions in weight immediately, but it just to have your metabolic rate going better and all the time, as opposed to only when you're exercising. So when you're just sort of sitting still, it is boosting your metabolic rate.
Interesting.
that one. And then there's the other one, which I love, which I wear every day, and that's the Neurovax patch. This was brought out to boost the immune system, and they introduced it just before COVID hit, when they were talking about COVID, and they brought it out early because they felt that for us to have it when we were going to be having injections, if we were going to have injections, and to help prevent us catching the virus as well. So I wear that, as I say, every day, because I need my immune system as good as it can be for as long as it can be. But the other thing they found was that there's a condition called rouleau in the blood, where the red blood cells stack on top of themselves like coins. It's like a stack of coins, and the blood becomes sticky and doesn't flow so well. But they've discovered that actually the Neurovax patch helps the blood flow more easily.
Wow.
They've got actually, there's dark something or other. I can't remember what it is, but they've got pictures of the blood going through the system, and how it's all stacked up one on top of the other like this, and then suddenly within 12 hours it's all flowing smoothly again.
And I suppose something like that, although it talks about boosting your immune system, and a lot of the time we don't want to do that, all of it is about balancing the immune system as well, isn't it? And
yes,
a lot of us put a lot of stress and pressure on our immune system through lifestyle choices, through our sleep being bad, as we were just talking about. We burn in the candle at both ends, and sort of the demands of a very busy life. So a lot of us are immune compromised without realizing it.
Absolutely.
So I think anything that will bring that back into a sense of balance and normality again is good. The other one, I can't let you slip by this one, because this is another one. I really want to talk to you about this one. I was fascinated the first couple of times we had a conversation, because every now and then your arm would move. I was thinking, she got a poor arm. She got on her arm. She hurt her wrist. She's some spectacular fall and roll on a tennis court. And then I thought you got a tattoo. I was like, she's got a tattoo down. So tell us about the sleeve, because this is something that we keep coming to this. This is something that I come back to with you every time.
This is a different pattern. Actually, it looks the same, because the actual pattern that you can see is Jay's thumbprint.
I see. I was going to say it looks like a fingerprint.
Yes, and within that is the proper pattern, because this is something I did ask him when I met him way back. Have you got a patent on this? And he said, no, because a patent, you have to explain how it works. With me, I've got intellectual property rights, which means that it is completely secret. Nobody knows what it is except him. And the intellectual property rights don't run out until 75 years after his death. And he's only in his early 50s. So we've got a long time with that. And as I say, it's a blue, what they call a blue ocean company. So there's nothing like it in the world.
So that pattern that looks like his fingerprint, then, is that on the inside of that sleeve?
Yes. Yeah. So that's the outside. And that's
why I thought you got a tattoo, like some strange scorpion, or like, Yeah.
It's just the only 80-year-old with a pattern on us.
You won't be the only 80. We're going to get inundated now with selfies of people with their tattoos.
Yeah, true. Now that is, I wear that all the time as well. In fact, I've had to put it back on again, otherwise I shall,
We'll this helps speak a few words together.
Yes. This affects a different part of the brain. So the front and back of the brain, which is the area that deals with memory, focus, concentration, calmness.
I see.
So for people who have very stressful jobs, this is really good. Long distance drivers, really good for helping you keep calm in stressful situations on a drive. We were talking about the tennis tournament.
That's how it came up. Yes.
Yeah. I went up on a Tuesday morning early from Bristol. It's 2 hours from me to Birmingham, where I had to be. I worked for 13 days straight without a break, 8 in the morning till at least 8 at night. Left the site on the Sunday at 7:30, got home at 9:30, having had a very nice journey home. got unpacked, had something to eat, and thought, perhaps I ought to go to bed now. Just really helps with that calm, don't get stressed out feeling.
Yeah. No, I was also asking you then, because that sort of, ex-teacher brain then started whirring around.
Yeah.
And I was asking you, wasn't I, about, is this a technology that's only used for adults?
Yeah.
Or would those sleeves work with children who, for instance, are struggling to concentrate, to focus,
absolutely,
to remember things in the classroom?
Absolutely. They've had great success with kids, particularly with ADHD. Now, some people with ADHD can't tolerate various tactile feelings. They don't like something tight on their arm, or they don't like wearing the socks because they perceive that they can feel the pattern.
Yeah, and I would imagine that's the same with children on the children and adults.
Yes,
on the autistic
absolutely.
spectrum.
Yes, exactly. But we have a lovely video of a little boy called Woody, and he must be about 6 or 7, and he's having a real meltdown with his mum, she's trying to get him to do some writing in his book, and he's faffing around and kicking the furniture, and I can't do it, and banging his head and all this. And she's saying, but just do this, no, I don't want to do it. And then it cuts to him sitting at his desk with the sleeve on, writing away nicely. And she said, and this isn't Woody now with his sleeve on. And she said, how do you feel now you've got your sleeve on, Woody? And he says, I don't rampage as much.
He makes himself sound like the Incredible Hulk, doesn't he? And you said lots of the kids refer to it almost like a superhero.
Yes,
sleeve.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, they've got lots I don't know whether they're here. I don't think they're here yet, but in the States, they've got lots of superhero ones. Instead of this pattern, they've got patterns with superheroes on them. So yes,
it's absolutely fascinating, I just love the concept of it.
Yes.
And the fact that as you say, that there are chiropractors that are recommending these, people from all different kinds of backgrounds and medical backgrounds as well, that are sort of initially so skeptical, as a scientist, I'm like, what?
Yes.
But there are so many things, there are so many technologies, there are so many therapies that we don't necessarily understand them inside. And my poor Reiki therapist said, I interviewed her the first time I went to talk to her. I'm sure it wasn't quite that harsh, but she's now one of our referral partners. Sarah often laughs about this. And if you watch our referral partner interview, we refer to that moment. But sometimes it just doesn't matter if we really understand the ins and outs of it. If we feel the benefits from it, if we believe that actually it's going to make that difference, then, what have we got to lose in giving it a try?
Yeah, we often say, what if?
Yeah.
What if it could help and you didn't do it? How bad would you feel if you hadn't recommended it to somebody when it could help them?
How many more years in pain? How many more years of just that, trying to get out of bed every day and face the day ahead? And am I going to make it through to the end of the day? Am I going to have the energy for this? Am I gonna feel robust and strong and balanced enough? And there are so many people that have not felt very balanced for all sorts of reasons.
Absolutely. And that, talking about balance, really good for seniors, as they say in America, old age pensioners, older people, because I don't know, you probably know this, but if you fall and break your hip over the age of 65, you've got something like a 25% more chance of dying within the next 2 years because of all the toxins that are released from that big bone.
Yeah.
Because toxins are stored in the bones, and the hip is a really big bone. So it's really important that balance, which is one of the main things that this gives you, is maintained as long as possible.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I know, we've been onto the website and we've had a good old poke around, because that's what we're like, due diligence and all that kind of stuff. And there are a number of different products, and it's very easy to kind of get lost in that website. So if someone is watching this or listening to this, Carole, and they're intrigued, because how can they not be? But they're intrigued to just find out whether it would even help them. Having a human being to be able to talk to, I think, would be of great benefit, because anything like this is not, you're investing in your health. These are not cheap products. So how can they get in touch with you because that human to human conversation, I think, is really important to make sure that they're getting the right product.
Yes, exactly.
And understanding what it will and won't help. And obviously that's a kind of conversation for you to have one-to-one with them privately. So how can they get in touch with you and find out more?
The easiest place probably is on Facebook, Sockingly Healthy, or Carole Johnston on LinkedIn.
Fab. Okay, and we can put all those contact details on the final tile of this and with this podcast as well, so that so that we can get in touch with you. But I think, you know, I know how much you love to talk about this, and I know how much you love to connect with people and really hear people's individual stories. And that, you know, it's so powerful, isn't it, where you know that what you can offer touches someone else's life.
Absolutely. And that just to hear from somebody that you know says, I can wake up in the morning now and get out of bed without having to spend 15 minutes trying.
Yeah. So indulge us if you were, and I didn't tell you I was going to do this, so I'm totally springing this on you.
Okay.
What would you say for you in the time that you've been doing this is the story, if you can share it, that you are most proud of?
For me personally, I think that one, the lady who used to lie in bed in the mornings, dreading having to get up because her pain was so bad, and how she knew that it would be probably 15 or 20 minutes before she could actually put her feet on the floor. That, I mean, you've got to love that, haven't you?
Kind of giving that lady, you know, her zest for life back. And that's,
absolutely, yes. That's
priceless, isn't it? And how many people do we know who feel like that in the mornings for one reason and another?
Yeah. What if they knew?
What if they knew, and what if they gave it a try? Exactly. So what if they picked up the phone? What if they went onto Facebook and tried to find you this afternoon or today at some point when they've heard this recording? So before we wrap up, I always like to finish with the question: what exciting things is Carole looking forward to before the end of this year?
Well, there's another bit of a story. A year ago, I put on LinkedIn, a post about the Neurovax patches. Didn't get much response, never do from LinkedIn. It's, you know, you put it up there and occasionally somebody says, well, yeah, okay, sounds interesting, but nothing ever comes of it.
Socks, question mark.
Yes, absolutely. So about 3 weeks ago, I had a message from a chap in Ireland who said, could we have a chat? So we had a Zoom, and he told me actually that his daughter has the very similar symptoms to, remember David that I talked about in Northern Ireland, his daughter. Mm-hmm. And he bought some products, and I said, how did you find me? And he said, well, I put in about neurology, and then I saw that you were interested in tennis. So I said, oh yeah, you know, and he's got a company with another chap, and they sponsor sports people, mm-hmm. particularly tennis players. His son's a player. And I told him, you know, I'd been a ball girl, and then I'd been a courtesy car driver, and I'd been here, there and everywhere, and all of that stuff. And he said, how do you see your tennis career going in the next 10, 20 years? And I said, well, in 20 years, I shall be 100, so probably not very far. Anyway, he said, how would you fancy using your tennis connections to see if you can get sponsorship for people?
Amazing.
Okay, fine. So isn't life extraordinary? From that decision I made back in 1983 to not use the public loos, you can trace that all the way back to here.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's one of the advantages of being old. You can look back and see those threads.
Isn't that wonderful?
It's extraordinary. Yes.
I always talk about our job is to drop pebbles in life, and we never know where the ripples are going to go, and we certainly never know when those ripples are going to bounce back off the shore and come back in our direction. And I kind of love that. So what a wonderful story after all that time of not wanting to use the public loo. Oh, Carole, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I'm really proud to introduce you as one of the Tip the Balance referral partners. And I know there's a lot of people out there that you can help. And you know, I'm sure we can all think of somebody that we know that could benefit from having a conversation with you, even if it goes no further than that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We'll make sure that all of your contact details are at the end of this video or at the end of this podcast. And as always, my love, it has been fantastic to spend time with you this afternoon.
You too, Becca. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
See you soon.
Yeah, bye.